Our session today is the global rise of African animation. My name is Mbuotidem Johnson. I'm the CEO of Basement Animation Studio. We're based in Lagos, Nigeria, to be specific. Some other people have branches around the world. Lagos, Nigeria, to be specific. And I'll allow my other panelists to introduce themselves. I'll say let Dami take it first.
Hello everyone, good afternoon. My name is Dami Solesi from Smith's Animation Studios. We've been running the studio now for 15 years. We're very passionate about telling African content to kids. I'm excited for this panel to talk about global, animation and how we can take our stories around the world.
Okay, thank you. And can we have Gbenga at the extreme? You just introduce yourself.
Hello, everyone. My name is Gbenga Ajetomobi. I'm a 3D generalist, and currently I'm the creative director at Enclave Animation, Enclave Media. So Enclave Media is a 3D animation production company, and I've been doing animation for quite some time. Actually, if I'll put a time to that, that would be like, almost 2 decades now. And so today I'm happy to be here to discuss with my, co-colleagues here on, leveraging African animation globally. Thank you.
Thank you. And finally, Mr. Fred.
Hi everyone, good afternoon. So my name is Ferdy Adimefe. I'm the CEO of Magic Carpet Studios. It's an animation and game studio here in Lagos. So we're around the corner. So good to spend the afternoon here with you guys.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Okay, so we will just dive straight into the conversation. Yes, the conversation is talking about the global rise of African animation. We hear these things so many times. African animation. But I wanted to really clarify. I know every single person here has been to an international market, and not just speaking from being based in just Nigeria and producing and servicing clients here. But when you go to the international market, how is the demand itself? That's what I really want us to clarify. We talk about there's a rise, but how is that demand? Because I strongly believe every single person here has an IP that they've developed over the years. And obviously, every single person here has over a decade in the industry. So I want to know, how is the demand for African content in that context, so to say? Anyone can kick off.
So I think that the demand is high. So I was in Rome for MIA. That was about 2 months ago. And again, everybody wanted to have a piece of the African pie. One of the challenges in the West is we're finding that a lot of their stories are kind of retold. So they've done a lot of those stories again. Most of their mythology, they've explored all of those things. So they're very interested in African stories. But if we say, what are the interests? It can be high, but is it converting? That's the question. And I really think for you to find that conversion, it requires a lot more than that. There needs to be a structure, there needs to be capitalization. Europe has always been interested in African art, even from colonial era up until now. The reason why we're not seeing a lot of those African films get made is partly because the capital structure, the co-production treaty to enable access to fund is not there. So with co-production, you can get half the fund from Europe, but also you need to capitalize on the Nigerian side, which is still not very much in place. So the interest is important and we celebrate the interest, but we're hoping that in the next few years, we will see that interest translate into real films in the cinema and in streaming platforms.
When I went for MIPCOM, I would say I wasn't entirely prepared for the kind of conversations that will happen there. Although I went in with Omoberry, which was the current IP that we had then, and when I started having conversations with people, I think it was interesting. The only thing there is that this structured part of the conversation that Ferdy mentioned was there were so many questions, and one of those questions was, okay, have you been able to, are you making money from this IP already? And of course, at that point, we were really spending a lot of money, like, week in, week out. But the question is, are we making money as we are, like, spending the money? So I think that was one thing that I wasn't entirely prepared for. And then, that was 2023, by the way. And then right from that time, the only thing I've actually been focused on is to once there's any conversation about, we're creating this, we're creating that, the only question I always ask is, okay, how are we going to make money from what we're creating? And I think so far it hasn't really really happened yet. I think we're still pretty much in the work. We're still trying to do things. We're still trying to have those conversations. Because when it comes to animation, fine, you're watching it, you're enjoying it, but how is it going to generate revenue, to sustain it and, for the business as well?
What will you say presently is that appetite for African content?
Okay, thanks so much for the question. So I'll start from, when the buzz and the interest in African content started, which was a few years ago, from the pandemic moving on. I think it was about time that the world started to hear, about our stories. I believe very strongly in the fact that diverse stories matter, and particularly for me, who is focused on kids content, I believe it's important that kids are exposed to cultures, from across the world. So it was about time for the world to start to focus on some of the stories that we're telling. Yes, in a way, it seemed like, it was a trend whereby there was a wave of, African IPs that were launched out, in the world. And moving into the last 2 years, many of us, sitting here in Lagos might not know, but the international animation industry globally, at least much of last year and into this year, was struggling. Like, we're holding on for dear life. And partly is also some of the threads that are also very prominent here in Nollywood and in Nigeria, whereby the streamers were pulling out, or rather in thinking more strategically about their investment in content and the likes. So the industry felt it because the last 5 years from the pandemic, there was a heavy investment in animation, which was what gave rise to an opportunity to look at other content. But I feel like the interest is still there. Nevertheless, I think sometimes we forget that animation is a business. I know we're artists, we love to, just, create for the love of creating, but at the end of the day, animation is a business, and there's some structures that are required, for that business, to happen. Whether it's the US model, whereby the studio is coming, with all the funds, all the investment, straight on, or the European model, whereby it's co-production. And in either way, it seems like Africa or Nigeria specifically is lagging one way or the other. Some of the things Ferdy already mentioned, which is even when because we have been in tables and deals whereby the other party was 100% interested and even willing to go above and beyond. But at the end of the day, we don't have co-production treaties with many of the countries in Europe. I know a few of them are currently now in talks, and hopefully we can get some of those signed up. I think the Minister for Creative Economy, we just signed, I think, with Brazil a few months back. So we're looking forward to signing, and I think South Africa as well. So I think we're looking forward to signing France and a few other countries. But at the same time, we also need that funding base locally. Without you having, your own piece of the pie, there's really no co-production. So it's we figuring out what is the business of animation, and how do we ensure that when money is put in, what's that value chain, and how do the investors get their money back, at the end of the day. It's, again, animation is a subset of the entire, film industry. So we still have some of the same struggles. It's just our struggles are a bit more amplified because our budgets are larger, and our lead times are also longer as well. So things like distribution, things like investment, those are some of our major issues. I would say that right now, just speaking specifically to the question about NSC and this year, just because the industry was grappling, with a lot, I think Africa was not front and center in their mind currently, but definitely they are interested. They know that we have these stories. They see the appeal, they see the characters, they can see it, but it's just putting the pieces together so that that pie, can be complete, and we're on the journey.
Okay, so that means, let's just say, to summarize this, there's a demand. It's just that the risk is high. So, especially when there's nothing coming from the African continent in sense of investment, so to say. So, while we wait till this ship comes, so to say, and Gbenga mentioned something about sustainability. how have you guys been able to sustain your studios? How have you been able to maintain? Because we're obviously waiting for, in a simple word, Moses to come set his people free. So how are you been able to sustain your studios, even over the years? Because we're talking about that before the industry started having this issue that is happening. Like, I've seen it on LinkedIn, studios closing down that have been existing for 26 years, for 14 years in Canada, in US, in France. Some studios have to even merge, and people are losing their jobs. For me that runs a studio in Lagos, Nigeria, I'm getting people from Europe sending me mails, they're looking for a job. It feels nice, but it's weird. So how have you been able to sustain your business, even previously before then, and how is it still that you're still existing?
So I think for us, there was it's a business model design. So again, I got into the space because I wanted to make movies. I wanted to make Shango, all these African superheroes. But to make that superheroes, you have to survive. So when we set up the studio, we did a hybrid. We had an outsourcing arm of the studio, and we took jobs. We worked for Cartoon Network, Sesame, Microsoft, a whole lot of Nigerian ads that we don't put on our page. Because if we put it on our page, people would think this is all we're about. So we didn't really put a lot of the ads there. And interestingly, I also had an agency before the studio though. The agency was also creating digital marketing, brand design, and so it was very, I had an ecosystem, so animation was in there. So we funded the studio for as long as the studio was able to now carry itself. So right now, what we are finding is that we are even now at a point where we're not so keen on taking a lot of jobs because at least one or two of our projects got funded. And that funding meant that we can now do that. So sustainability, it's animation as a service first before animation for your own production. And that's the way I think in Africa we have to think. There was just no way other way to deal.
Now you said something about you service, but you don't put it out there. So how do you approach that, Dami? Even though you are servicing, obviously, how do you approach that? Because everybody who has that other flip side of the coin where they want to do IPs, but at the same time you have to do service work. So how do you position yourself and also be sustainable, even in the sense of positioning? How do you position yourself for partnerships, for co-production, for investment, so that you're not perceived just as a service company? How did you manage that?
So I think for us, from the very beginning, we came into animation because we wanted to make, shows and stories. But I think for the first, almost 10 years, we were just doing ads. Like, that was all we were doing to just ensure that we keep the wheel running. We moved into content, but even right now, the bulk of the work that we do is still service work, is working on other clients' projects, independent producers. That's the bulk of the work we do. How we say it is that we do our IPs in between, in our breaks. That's how we were able to work on some of our projects. I think it's just the nature of the way the industry is right now. Working on an IP is great, but it is a long game. It's a long game to ensure you get the right partnerships, to be able to make that happen, for some of your IPs and projects. But I think while you wait, I think the mistake sometimes creators make is they just wait endlessly. I think is ensuring that you're making progress on those IPs as you wait. So whatever it may be, whatever the MVP of your, to use a tech term, of your project can be, whether it's a short film, whether it's something online, just keep producing and keep putting your content out there so that people understand who you are as a filmmaker and the kind of stories that you want to tell. So I think for us is, we're very big on the work that we do for clients, which is the bulk of the marketing that we do when we go to international markets. But at the same time, we're also pushing out, our own IPs in other places, like in festivals and in other avenues as well too. So we're constantly playing those two, and I think it's just the nature of the business that we're in, is you're thinking about sustainability. At the same time, you have this passion project you want to get out there, so it's just balancing, both of them.
Okay. For you, Gbenga, I know that you already have a previous long history of as a freelancer. Yeah. Then you had that transition where you had an investment into your company, and now you had the opportunity to live this freelance life and actually focus on IPs you want to develop. Yeah. And now we are now in a different season of the economy and the industry. And obviously to sustain your company, you have to have a mix of those two things. How does it feel in that sense, like trying to balance where you've always had that space of IPs were just the core things on the table, but now there has to be a balance just to sustain?
Thank you. So there's one thing I would say I admire about animation studios in Nigeria, like that people like Dami and Ferdy, and I have high regards for Ayodele Legba as well because of the longevity of running the studio. So there's this. He has already mentioned how you try to sustain while, of course, you're still working on what I'll call a passion project, but in my own production, which I was a co-founder, and there's a founder, I think one thing that we could have actually done right, which is what they have mentioned already, is trying to have something. Although we actually raised like a substantial amount of money that actually lasted us for I think 4 years, but once the money is done, we are kind of like back to the square root. But of course, I'm not like, I wouldn't say I'm like on the business aspect of, at least for, I'm always focused on the production, so I try not to interfere with, the business. But of course, I see other creators and I see how their studios have gone, like that have been sustaining for so long. And I was of the opinion that, okay, while we're actually working on this IP, we have the team, we have like, maybe like 20-something staff working on, Moberry steady, week in, week out. So I always push out the suggestion of having some other source of, revenue, like, maybe like training or, doing, but because the other founder being American, they really didn't believe in, trying to divide the company, and they really wanted us to focus, on the IP and continue, grinding on that IP, and I felt like it actually affected a lot of things because eventually we had to lay people off, people that were getting paid every month, and it's now eventually happened during the time where there's this kind of shift in the animation industry where if you actually lose your job now, you'd have to sweat to. So for me, I would say it's smarter that way if you are thinking sustaining for a long run to try and venture into that space like they had. One other person I have so much regard for is Richard Obo, who I think he has an IP, which is something that everyone knows him for, but he does the IP by the side, and then he focuses on the other things that actually bring the money. And the studio is still running, and will probably keep running. So I feel like for me, the experience I've had, wasn't really. I wouldn't say it's the same thing as the other studio owners where they have other things, going on by the side while they're still pushing on the IP.
Okay, so that means to just be very clear, that means an animation studio has two arms. It has the service arm, it has the product arm, which falls under the IP itself. So if from your experience, which I would say that you've probably gone ahead of us, you've had an investment, and in trying to sustain that is really monetizing the IP itself. So for you, Ferdy, now I know that you have like a very core IP that you guys have been on and has been in the public eye for a while, and I think you are going towards that phase where you're going to round up productions, you have some investments in it. So how do you make sure that you monetize what you have? Because that looks like that's the pitfall for any IP. Like even as we go through that long process of trying to get investments, we try to get funding, we try to get co-production with, then how do you secure monetization or else?
So it's interesting because we have two projects that are moving very quickly. One of them is the series Meet the Igwes. But we've been on that series for 3 years. In fact, we did the first 3 episodes, ran out of money, right? Our investors backed out when they realized Netflix was moving away because we had pitched the idea to Netflix and Netflix liked it. So we were producing in hope that Netflix would come and buy. And then a few months in, 3 episodes, investors read article that Netflix had left. And they were asking us, what are you going to do about it? Where is the money coming from? Nobody could answer. Because, we could only pray that Netflix would come back. Amazon also packed their bag. So that gave everybody chill, like producing and then realizing the market had gone. So we didn't have an answer. We kind of even packed up the project. And then MTN came. apparently I went to MTN to pitch our feature film. Like, MTN, come and do product placement inside our feature film. And they said, okay, we don't think feature film is good. We want series, because they were launching a stream platform and they were leaning to series. I said, oh, we have something we could see it. So we showed them the 3 episodes, they jumped, like, I can't believe this, because they were trying to hit time to launch. So they didn't want to commission any studio to start something fresh. They wanted to ride on something, and so we got that in. Right, then our feature film is also interesting, because for feature film, you have to go to cinema or you get a streamer to buy. Now the challenge, the good and the bad thing about animation is that if you want to get animation license, you cannot get it licensed from Amsterdam. You have to get it licensed from the US or Europe. You can't get it, they're not mandated. So when we're producing, we had gone to Netflix. Netflix said, oh, it's animation, we don't do that. So you have to look to the US, which is now a good thing, right? Because in the US, you have to now package it for a US project. You can't come there. Sometimes you have to figure out how to get some international voice actors to come on your project. You have to whitewash it a little. Sorry about that. But at least get a little bit of some solid white names to carry the team. You understand? So, guys, it's an entire diplomacy. It's actually very diplomatic in how you transition film. But we've gotten a US distributor that is already closing like a potential streaming deal and all of those things. But it was a lot of journey. We're fortunate enough to raise some money, most of the money from the US, some from Nigeria. So with funding is a cocktail of options. You have to look for, sometimes you have to do like private placement, family and friends. It's an entire work of art. Right, and I think that's how we navigated that. Okay, and we have one of our panelists that just joined us. Can we welcome Gbenga Ajetomobi, popularly known as Ajemo? Thank you very much. So just to catch up with the conversation, Dami, I know you launched a very amazing animated content on YouTube just last week, because my kid was jumping up and down in the living room. And you're using YouTube as a medium to monetize, obviously. And as everybody will say, YouTube takes a long time. I think I heard Ferdy saying it takes a long time. Like everybody says the same term. It takes a long time. How are you trying to make sure that you monetize? Because it's a long journey. How are you making sure that you monetize? Okay, so yeah, like you said, we launched Keko Africa last week. On YouTube. It's been a long time coming with that project. I think that particular YouTube channel, we actually launched it in 2019. We actually launched that page in 2019, and I think the first pilot was in like maybe 2017 or so. So it's been a while that we wanted to launch that project. I think 3 years ago, we launched a series of books based on that same IP. And we've taken it to quite a number of schools, partnered with donor agencies to distribute the books for free. I think with Keko Africa, we're very passionate about wanting to tell our culture to kids. There's a lot of African history that I didn't find out until I was in my 30s. And I just felt that kids should know this. Why were we taught in school? I learned history in school, but none of this, Timbuktu, about the library, the Mali Empire, even Benin Empire, like just a stone's throw away. We didn't learn those things in school. And over the last, 10 plus years, history has been taken out of curriculums for kids in school. The Minister of Education says it's going to be back. It's not back yet, because I check with my kids' school every now and then. Is history back? Is history back? It's not back yet, but it has been announced that it will be coming back. And I think very strongly that when we don't know our story, our history, our identity as a people, it sometimes warps how we see ourselves. So it's a project that I've always been very passionate about, and because of the way I wanted to go about it, we had tried partners in the past, and similar to some of the things Ferdy said, there were things about the story that wanted to be changed, that I didn't want to change, that I wanted to be as it is, as authentic as possible. So with Keko, we decided that we wanted to go the YouTube route. We know it's long. This is like the worst time to be on YouTube. Like, I tell the team, I said, God, YouTube. But, and even many times as a creator as well, too, I don't think YouTube is necessarily, the first place that would come to mind. Like, we have a lot of IPs that we create. We have a short film that has been to 30 festivals, has won Best Animation in about 8 of those festivals, and we haven't put it on YouTube. Everybody keeps asking on our comment section, when are you putting it on YouTube? And I'm like, no, we're not doing that. So I understand that. But again, just because of what this project is and what it's about, we felt that YouTube was what
was best for us. We do have some other plans for the IP come in 2026, and how we've always run with the books, whereby we have an impact aspect to it. So as we start to launch those aspects, we feel like it will make sense in the long run. But again, definitely, if I was advising another creator, I would say this is not the best time for kids content specifically on YouTube. Maybe for young adults, definitely, because you can monetize. You have advertising and the likes that play, on YouTube. And just speaking to other creators on the continent that are on YouTube, I see their struggle. They tell me their numbers. So definitely, we see what is going on. Even just as CPMs and the likes on the content is the lowest. A lot of things need to change about YouTube, as it runs. But again, for us, we feel like this is where this IP needs to be for now, and we'll see where it goes come next year.
And you will monetize?
We shall monetize. We shall.
Okay. Just to, Ferdy, if you can help me with the mic to House of Ajebo. So now, this conversation is I like it that you are in the conversation, because we're talking about something that you slap up and down very easily. So it's good that you're here. So now I know that you've been doing House of Ajebo for only God knows how long. Can you give a number to it so that people can have a sense of it?
14 years.
14 years, thank you. My studio is 14 years. Just to be clear. Can see, as we're slapping this thing for that long. And I know that you've been doing this and it's doing very well.
Yeah.
I want to ask you, why didn't you go the other routes? Why did you pick YouTube as a key model? Because it's looking like the whole market now. It's not looking like the whole market is screaming YouTube.
Yeah.
I went to Kids Screen February, YouTube conversations. I think at MIP Junior, MIPCom, YouTube has a stand for the first time in 62 years or so. For the first time. So it's obvious that the market is shifting towards YouTube. But this is obviously not new to you.
Yeah.
Obviously, you're just wondering, are you guys just getting the gist? Or you guys are just joining the party late? So I want to ask you, why did you pick that route that early when everybody had a sense of broadcasting was the key thing?
My name is Emeka Nehemiah. I'm a stand-up comedian by the name Ajebo and the founder of House of Ajebo Multiverse, right? And also the character behind Tegolo, champion of worry. So first of all, I went into YouTube blind. I started blind. I was just an entertainer out of the university, wanted to create skits, but wanted to do it differently. And I decided the animation route to start with. And then we had our first set of skits out in 2012, thereabout, and it just went viral. At the time, I think it was Facebook, WhatsApp. So people started sending it back to me. Well, this is so funny. I say, not me. I say, no, it's not. It's funny how people don't get the Ajebo, but then they hear, is the House of Ajebo, it connects. So I was at a point where it was everywhere, no money. It was just popular. And someone said, put it on YouTube. So I started my YouTube channel. So I did YouTube for 8 years without making a dime. So I can relate when you say YouTube is, but the thing about YouTube is YouTube has constantly, changed things and continually trying to support creators. And this is actually the best time to be on YouTube. It's the best time. If you go on YouTube, you see a lot of Nollywood movies doing well. You see that you can tell that there was a deliberate action to take the market, the Nollywood market. You can tell that there was a deliberate attempt to take that market. Producers were doing stuff with African Magic and the rest, and you can just take that film and put on YouTube and be making your $10,000 a month, or So they took the market, and same happened with me. I mean, when it was locked down, that we started getting a lot of attention, and it just blew 120,000 subscribers to 1 million, and before we closed our eyes, 1.5, 2, we are 2.4 million now. And I experimented a lot with kids content, Jenny and Kenny, our new kids channel with Afrofusion. I don't know if you've seen it. For the first 1 year, we didn't make any money, right? And then we relaunched 3 months ago. And in just 3 months, in just 3 months, a lot of things has changed, a lot. YouTube is the best place to try out the market. I did not know how to apply to all the film festivals and do all that stuff. So it was like, this one way we they see, make we whole and well, and that's how we entered. But I can tell you that the way things have evolved on YouTube, now is the time. And the world is ready for Africa. It's Africa that is not ready. Check all the movies that they've done that is about Africa. Wakanda is not our story, yeah? But look at how much it made in box office, right? So imagine that we can now create our own story. We can have great collaborations and tell our own story. The world is waiting. And the reason that YouTube will do well, like you said something about CPM, African CPM is messed up, and of course that's because it's advertisers' money that pays you. Our advert spend in Nigeria is nothing compared to those that spend in dollars. Do you understand? So if you have a lot of Nigerian viewers, and the first thing a child learns in Nigeria is how to skip advert. That's the first thing a child learns, Ladies just a beep. So that's why we don't make a lot of money here. But you see, and that's why the highest paid YouTubers now, people on YouTube now, are the Nollywood producers, right? They are the highest paid because abroad, that's their own TV. They just move from, they just leave it. Adverts we play, Oyibo adverts here and there. So they're making their monies in the hundreds of thousands of dollars, So there was something he said, I was just smiling on my seat, how you have to whitewash the content. So just make it in such a way that, you're cutting across, So I'm telling the African story, and I have a lot of viewers in diaspora that watch, that watch Tigolo. But you see Jenny and Kenny, that is the nursery rhyme channel. That is, it is majorly, in fact, Nigeria is like number 6 or 7 at our back end. We have 50% views coming from the US, and it's kids content, and it's doing well. In fact, off the back of Jenny and Kenny doing well, we have started up 10 more channels. That's why I called myself House of Ajebo Multiverse. So yeah, it's doing well. And there's just the same way every market has a technique and strategy to it. Once you understand the strategy as to how to upload on YouTube and consistently, put things in place on YouTube, you're good to go. We are creative in Nigeria. We are very creative, and the world is interested in African story, in African music, and everything that we do is just the strategy and the positioning that we need. Thank you.
Thank you. One thing I want to ask now is, obviously there's one core part that I know over the years that even as a studio owner we probably struggled with, which is when it really kicks on the point where you say Africa isn't ready for the market, or is not ready for the world. It's really in production. Right. How do you pull off production at a certain level and consistently? Like I can say that for one thing that's Omo Berry. So Gbenga, this question is pushed to you. Like Omo Berry, when you guys kicked off, it was obviously you were doing 3D. 3D cost is obviously not the same thing as 2D costs. And to consistently produce, over and over again, which is one core part that if someone could sit down and say, I could do the same thing you're doing, and you probably just laugh because you're on the production side, probably just like, you can do it. Yes, you can do it. But I'll say that's one thing will you say that's one key thing that has been like a bottleneck over the years? Because when we say production, it's not just producing content consistently. It's tied to talent, it's tied to equipment, it's tied to funding, it's tied to so many things. Will you say like that's one core thing that when you jumped into your IP, you were really focused on? Because you mentioned that you're on the creative side. You really focused on that, not because you were not interested in the business part, but you felt like it was something that needed to be addressed.
Okay. So the thing is, when it comes to production, I don't like to, I like when things are actually structured. So if on a production, it's one of the things I've actually struggled with working, at other studios where, one person at maybe somebody at the marketing will come into the studio and, start having conversation with the creatives. And so there's so many things that are not supposed to be. So, and I would always say that, okay, when I find myself in a situation where I have to probably take charge of a studio or a production, I would like things to be structured. Not like maybe when we're having the executive meetings, maybe it is not like I don't have my opinions or I don't but I would want to let the people that, okay, you guys are the one in charge of this, so it's better that you focus on this thing. If you are in any kind of financial mess or, I would like you guys to think about things that will get us out of it. But when it comes to production, I can be asleep and my brain will still probably be working and I will still probably get things done. So that is the way and I feel like, we actually produced, many episodes, across the 4 years that we're and we're doing, we're dropping, at some point we're dropping episodes every week. So, but later at some point, because of the kind of quality challenges that we have, wanted to make things better, so it has to now be 2 episodes, in a month. And at some point, it got to be, 1 episode. So, we're just trying to make sure that, we find that balance where, where we don't lose the audience. So anything we're creating, we are actually trying to position it in a way whereby we don't lose our audience. We always track. We have people that also track the number on YouTube, so everyone knows what they are supposed to do. And I feel like that is one thing that actually made the production work, because I've been everywhere. I've probably worked in a couple of studios, and I know what actually pulls people apart when you want the because someone can model, you want them to do animation, you want them to do this and that, and everyone starts to. But when you say, okay, you as an artist, what you do is just animation, focus on animation, don't think about modeling. So I feel like a structure like that kind of help creative generally, and it also helps the production to for us to know where we're going, for us to know the kind of things that we can actually create. So if that answers your question.
Yeah, it does. Ferdy, can you speak about production? Because I know obviously if you're in 2 productions now, which is your feature film and series.
Yeah, we need too much. We won't work with you. No, it's all right.
But how have you been able to manage it? Because sometimes I think when we look at the creative sector in general, some other sectors have been able to figure it out, in the sense that when you look at the music sector, they've been able to figure it out to the point that they got to the point that they were able to monetize before they went to the next transition, then investments came. When you look at the fashion industry, they've been able to do some certain things. Like even the fashion industry doesn't need nobody's help right now. I feel like they are set for life because of they've been able to figure out how to get themselves to that point. They can manage production. They can do everything literally here. But for animation, it's not like we don't have good stories. It's not like we don't have good IPs. It's not like as if we don't have good talent, even in the industry, because we see our talent getting involved even in international projects. Like we just saw Eye of Wakanda. It's literally a Nigerian that drew those characters, that is for Marvel. So how will you speak about production in the sense of long form production? Because I don't think there's any problem with short form. Doing advertising, 30 seconds, short films, we've been able to lock that down, but long form production.
So I think one of the things I think we tend to mistake is talent is not skill. We are very talented. Talent is in abundance. Skill is rare because you have to groom that talent. And in animation, it takes time to refine the process. We developed sort of like an internal pyramid model around production. So pyramid model on our pipeline is that some of the artists who are not as very, very talented or experienced do some basic level of work. And then the more talented ones will pick it up and then refine. And then the top guys will now make it up. So at the end of the day, everybody's employed. Because if you get that most talented guy to start working on the 5 minutes length, it's going to spend 5 minutes. But if we get younger guys who can spend, 5 of them can do 1 minute, right? And they're not that expensive because they're young. So they now pass it to the guy who is more experienced. He refines the process. So the pyramid model helps. It doesn't solve all the problems, but it does help. And we are very technology driven again. So we've tried as much as possible to use technology to guide that process in terms of how we manage our output. We have a little bit of a flexible model now. Some people don't show up at the office. Some people show up at the office. Some people come 10 to 5. Some people come from 6 p.m. to the next morning. We don't care. Just deliver your sequence, right? So I think that flexibility has also helped us somewhat. So in a sense, that is how I see us solving the problem until we get to a point where there is going to be a lot of skilled people to work on production. And it's also something that I think we have a school that is training people in animation. So we know, even when you graduate them from your school, they're not that ready. They need time, right? And who's going to... So people come from Yapi sometimes, and I know that they need another year with me as an apprentice to be able to get on real production. Now we go pay. You understand? Government should give us that paid 1 year. So I think that hybrid model has really been the magic for us.
Ajebo, I would like to ask you, because like you mentioned, you've been doing it for over 8 years without making anything. And now you're at a space where you consistently release an episode every week. And that is, someone would think like that's easy. But how are you managing production itself?
You need to tell me sorry. So unlike my ogas here who, have the animation skills, run the studios, me, an animation entrepreneur, right? I am a storyteller who just decided I would do it with animation with no animation skills, right? Straight out of university, I thought, I just told myself I'm going to tell jokes with animation. That's how it all started. So I needed to, so when you ask that question about what I meant when I said Africa is not ready, but the world is ready for Africa. I meant it from the angle of collaboration, right? I meant it from angle of collaboration. Tegolo is the most watched made in Africa character right now, according to ChatGPT. Yeah, right. No, this thing. Yeah, we have almost 1 billion views on YouTube. Yes, so yeah, he is. That is something that an animation studio should see and say, let's do a full length and let's do a movie, and it will be Africa to the world. Do you understand what I mean? But somehow, because of how, everybody and their own limitations and everybody trying to even struggle to even handle their own production, before you can now start to look to collaboration, right? So that's not happening, right? So for me, from day one, I've always paid animators from day one, right? In fact, there was a time that I had my own animators in my studio here in Nigeria. I have some running in India, right? So that's why if you see my production, these you see that there are different animation style, right? The day when India finish, we go post. The day when Nigeria finish, we go post. You understand? So that's what we had been doing for so long, for a long time. And I've been paying seriously, because when you have to now hire people from outside of the country, it's FX. So that's how I've been handling production. But so from the business standpoint, I was going to ask this question if I wanted to meet with them and ask them, how are you handling production? And with the new AI frenzy coming in, are you transitioning? Is it helping your workflow? What are you doing? Because for me and my house, we will serve the Lord and we will use the AI. So yeah, I've set up a fully powered a fully AI powered animation studio right now, and trust me, it has made my production like 10x. So for me, as a storyteller, my only challenge was production, and now I have the tools to be able to achieve the same quality or almost the same quality, because AI is not cheap, by the way. It's not cheap, because but when I compare it to what I've already been paying before, it's like me paying the same thing but getting more. So I have transitioned to AI. I'm on the AI side of things now. You understand? Yeah.
Again, sorry, Mike. The thing about that AI thing is everybody's keeping an eye on it. But what we found out from the AI pipeline is that a lot of the people who didn't know how to use conventional software tend to struggle with the consistency of the prompts. Yes. And so we now had to dive back. It's a struggle because you now dive back, you now realize you need somebody that can understand a combination of maybe Toon Boom and AI or Maya and AI to combine it and export it. So sometimes you use multiple softwares to refine the process. The other part of AI that every studio is, we want it easy. You understand? But again, the commercial part, almost every contract we're signing with people now will tell you don't use AI. All the contracts we have, they are still saying don't use AI. It's almost like there's a dispute in how you can commercialize AI products. So for YouTube experiments, maybe it can work. Now, even YouTube came up with some AI policies, but I think every studio needs to think AI for dubbing. Because again, I can get a show, I can release it in French, I can release it in different languages with AI. AI can help you with concept references, generation, and all of those things. But to complete production, a standalone production on AI might require a couple of years to get there. From what I see.
So I think one question. I like this conversation.
Can I say
no, before you jump. I like this conversation because I have a sense of how every single person here functions. We have studios that want to do short-term production for TV broadcasting. Then we have studios like Ferdy that wants to do cinema, that wants to produce film, and these have different ranks of quality. Then when you come to the YouTube consumer, it's really about the consumers at the end of the day. It's really about the consumers. It's not really about how we feel or what it is. When it comes to the YouTube platform, I keep singing this to my head. These guys are very forgiving. In the sense, what you produce, as long as it hits their mile, which it is entertaining, they are fine and they are good to go. So when he's speaking in the sense of using AI, I understand because of the consumers are the ones that determine the outcome. Yeah. They determine the outcome. And when he says it's fully AI, he's 100% sure of what he's saying. But when you're speaking in the aspect of the consumers, which is in cinema. They will need probably the 7,000 prompts. He will just need the 7 prompts. Do you get because it still sticks to what is good enough for these consumers that they are willing to take this content at that point in time. And let's remember the entry level for YouTube is just click and watch. It's not the same thing as cinema. Cinema is pay and watch. Then I give you my feedback. But YouTube is, once I click watch, feedback or no feedback, you have click, you have pay me. So it has a different feel. But you wanted to say something.
Yeah, I wanted to say something. So first of all, what he said is 100% true. AI will not take people's jobs. It's people that know how to use AI that will take the jobs. So to what he said about, you need to have an understanding of how to use the softwares. You need to have an understanding how to use there's some things that you can achieve just with VO3. You now have to now take it to, so that's why I say it's not cheap, because you end up subscribing to like 10 different AI platforms. So that's why I say, from a point of view as somebody who has been paying from the beginning, when I check the cost, I still like the outcome. So that's why I'm switching to it. But here's what's going to happen with AI. Because, I think that we have not fully accepted the reality that AI is here to make our lives easier. By the time, you see, this whole AI revolution, Nigeria, we always wake up 10 years later, right? By the time Nigeria will wake up, the world will be far gone. Right now, investors, employers, they're not employing without AI skills all over the world. But Nigeria is still saying, I hope it's not, this is not AI. I hope it's not AI. Because we are too used to putting out the cheap version, the free version. So all those things that people will run into themselves and mix. One person's 5 fingers will turn to 2 fingers. All those AI pitfalls, we are still suffering them. But what I'm telling you is that, see, we will get to a point. Already the music industry is giving awards. People are taking home awards. AI artists. They created the music with AI. They are making streaming money with AI. They are doing everything with AI. I can assure you, we will get to that point where we'll also be able to make cinema movies with AI, especially when those who are top notch with the AI already that already know how the animation in the animation space now decide to incorporate it. But Nigeria, it's somehow when something you've been doing for 10 years and then somebody just comes and do it with a click. Sometimes it's kind of, it's hard to catch up sometimes. But I'm telling you that we will get to a point where, and I'm already doing it. Like I said, we have 10 new channels because I'm ready to pay the price, because I have already been suffering it already. I'm already paying the money anyways. I'm just rechanneling it. And you see, I did Jenny and Kenny for a whole year. I was paying animators in India I invested about 100K USD already for a whole year, and I did not make a dime. But I relaunched in 3 months using AI because I am already a storyteller. You can be an animator, but you're not a storyteller. All my animators on YouTube, they also have their YouTube channel. 5 followers, 6 followers, 10 sometimes, So it's not about the skill itself. It's about the storytelling. It's about the strategy. It's about what are you selling to these people and how are you positioning it. And that's why I want to piggyback to what I said at the beginning about collaborations. Imagine this man here and we decide to do a Tegolo movie which already has mileage. Together, we will win together. Do you understand? So that's what I mean when I say Africa needs to be ready. We need to start to think further than just ourselves and our name and our this, and we need to, you see some of these movies, you see this studio in collaboration with this studio, in collaboration with this studio. Everybody came together to do it, and it's global. We need to start to think that way, and we need to start to incorporate AI. Thank you.
I really want to appreciate everyone for making our time and my wonderful guests. Please, you can give everyone a hand. Thank you.